Hello, my dear friends, and welcome back to Wolf's Secret. Before we begin today's story, I want to take a quiet moment to sincerely thank every one of you who continues to watch, support, comment, and return to this little world we have built together. Every view, every kind message, and every moment you choose to spend with these stories means more than you may realize. Because of your support, Wolf's Secret has become more than a channel about alpha kings, mysterious wolves, gentle omegas, hidden mate bonds, and unexpected love. It has become a warm place where we can laugh, feel, hope, and sometimes fall in love with characters who are only searching for one thing, a place where they truly belong. And today's story begins with something wonderfully simple, a strawberry cake, a fierce black wolf, and one kind-hearted young woman who has absolutely no idea that the animal visiting her kitchen every morning belongs to the most powerful man in the kingdom. There will be laughter, secrets, quiet jealousy, tender moments, and a love that grows long before either of them is ready to admit it. So, make yourself comfortable, stay with Wolf's Secret, and let's begin. And truly, thank you for being here with us. The first mistake Emily Parker made that morning was baking a strawberry cake too pretty to throw away. The second was feeding it to the most dangerous wolf in Ravencrest. She had no idea, of course. At 5:37 in the morning, the eastern kitchen was still wrapped in sleepy golden light. Rain tapped softly against the narrow windows, and the old ovens breathed out waves of warmth scented with vanilla, butter, and ripe strawberries. Emily stood alone beside the worktable, staring sadly at a crooked cake. One side leaned. The cream had slipped. 3 strawberries had fallen into positions that looked less elegant and more like they were trying to escape. Emily placed both hands on her hips. "Well," she murmured, "you gave it your best." The cake remained unapologetic. At 29, Emily had become accustomed to speaking to food when nobody else was listening. Food rarely interrupted. It also complained considerably less than head cook Margaret Collins. Only 10 minutes earlier, Margaret had inspected the cake intended for the Royal Harvest breakfast selection. "Too rustic," she had said. Emily had looked at the strawberries. "They're fruit. They look common." Emily had almost asked what aristocratic strawberries looked like. Almost. She valued employment, so the rejected cake now sat beside her, still smelling wonderful despite apparently lacking noble blood. Emily cut herself a small slice. Then came the growl. Low, deep, close. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. The kitchen suddenly felt much larger and much quieter. Emily slowly turned toward the open service door. A black wolf stood beneath the stone archway. Her breath vanished. He was enormous, far too enormous. Rain glittered across thick black fur, and a narrow silver marking curved beneath his throat. His amber gold eyes fixed on her with an intelligence that made Emily wonder whether screaming would simply embarrass them both. She lowered the fork. The wolf stepped forward. Emily stepped backward. His shoulders nearly reached her waist. "Oh," she whispered. The wolf stared. "You're rather large." One black ear twitched. Emily swallowed. That wasn't criticism. The wolf's gaze shifted, not toward her throat, toward the cake. Emily followed his eyes, then looked back at him. "You cannot possibly want strawberry cake." His tail moved once. Emily blinked. "No." The tail moved again. Despite herself, she almost laughed. "You're a wolf." He continued staring at the cake. Emily sighed with the tired patience of a woman negotiating with someone else's spoiled child. "This is a terrible idea." She cut a small piece and placed it carefully on a plate. The wolf approached. Emily held very still. His scent reached her first cedar, cold rain, and something darker, like smoke left behind after a winter fire. Strangely, her fear softened. The wolf lowered his head. He ate the cake, then slowly looked up at her. Emily waited. "Well?" His tail struck the floor. Once. Her lips curved. "Oh, don't look so proud. Margaret said it wasn't good enough for royalty." The wolf went completely still. Emily scratched lightly behind one ear before remembering she was petting a creature large enough to eat her. "You liked it, though." His eyes closed briefly beneath her touch. Somewhere deep inside the wolf, Alpha King Ethan Blackwell forgot how to breathe. No one had touched him gently in years, and no one had ever fed him strawberry cake while insulting his own kitchen. Emily stepped back. "That's all you're getting." Too much sugar is bad for wolves. His eyes opened. He looked offended. Emily smiled. Come back tomorrow if you want to complain. She had been joking. At exactly 5:40 the next morning, Emily opened the kitchen door. The black wolf was waiting, and between his enormous paws lay a silver royal coin. Emily Parker discovered very quickly that the enormous black wolf had not misunderstood her invitation. He had taken it very seriously. The Eastern kitchen was barely awake when she opened the service door and found him sitting beneath the stone archway, perfectly still in the blue-gray dawn. Rain had stopped during the night. The courtyard smelled of wet stone, pine, and cold earth. Behind Emily, the kitchen carried warmer scents, butter melting over iron, fresh bread, cinnamon, and the strawberries she had sliced before sunrise. The wolf stared at her. Emily stared back. Then she noticed the silver coin lying between his front paws. Her eyebrows lifted. What is that? One black ear moved. Emily crouched carefully and picked it up. The coin was heavy, beautifully stamped, and far more valuable than anything she usually carried. A crowned wolf was engraved on one side. The royal crest. Emily looked at him suspiciously. Did you steal this? The wolf's expression did not change. That was not a difficult question. He lowered his head. Emily narrowed her eyes. Oh, no, don't suddenly become shy. She held the coin toward him. Take it back. The wolf looked at her hand, then at Hare. He did not move. Emily placed the coin on the stone between them. There. The wolf immediately pushed it toward her with one enormous paw. Emily blinked. She pushed it back. He pushed it forward again. No. Forward. Absolutely not. Forward. Emily pressed her lips together. You are surprisingly stubborn for someone who doesn't pay taxes. His tail struck the ground once. That ruined her attempt to remain serious. A laugh escaped. All right, fine, but this does not mean you're buying the entire cake. The wolf rose immediately. Emily pointed toward the floor. Sit. He sat. She froze. Slowly, Emily looked around the empty courtyard. Then, back at him. You understand me. The wolf stared innocently. That is deeply unsettling. Inside that massive black body, Alpha King Ethan Blackwell was experiencing a humiliation no enemy army had ever managed to inflict. His wolf was pleased. Very pleased. Cake. Ethan resisted. No, Cake. You are the king of 9 packs. Cake. Ethan would have sighed if wolves could sigh with dignity. Emily disappeared inside and returned with a small plate. One neat slice of strawberry cake rested on it. The moment the scent reached him, Ethan's wolf leaned forward. Emily pulled the plate back. His amber eyes snapped to hers. Rules. The wolf's ears lifted. Emily counted on her fingers. No stealing bacon. His gaze shifted suspiciously toward the kitchen. No frightening the milk delivery boy. His ears lowered. And no standing on the work table. The wolf looked offended. I saw the paw prints yesterday. He looked away. Emily smiled. That's what I thought. She put the plate down. He ate more slowly this time. Emily leaned against the doorway and watched. There was something strangely peaceful about him when he ate. For such a frightening creature, he seemed almost lonely. She hated that thought. It made her want to be kind. Kindness had always been Emily's weakness. 3 mornings passed. Then 4. Then 5. Every day, at almost exactly the same time, the wolf returned. And every morning, he brought something. On the 3rd day, he left a small sprig of lavender. Emily held it beneath her nose. You have improved. The wolf looked proud, much less criminal. The next morning, he brought a red apple. The morning after that, a polished silver button. Emily turned it over in her fingers. Her eyes narrowed. This looks expensive. The wolf suddenly became fascinated by the wall. Shadow. His head snapped toward her. Emily paused. The name had come without thought. She looked at his dark coat, nearly black enough to disappear before sunrise. Shadow, she repeated. The wolf's tail moved. Emily smiled. Well, apparently you approve. Ethan did not approve. His wolf absolutely did. That was becoming a problem. A serious one. By the 6th morning, Ethan had begun waking several minutes before the change took him. He would stand beside the tall windows of his private chamber, already knowing what was coming. His wolf would push forward. Not violently, not painfully, with determination. One thought, hair, one place, the Eastern kitchen. Ethan had commanded armies more easily than he controlled his own wolf at dawn. He tried remaining in bed. His wolf paced inside him. He tried paperwork. His wolf ignored it. He tried eating breakfast in the royal dining room. His wolf smelled strawberries from across the palace. That had been the end of that experiment. Then, one morning, Ethan returned to human form in his private chamber and noticed something wrong. His dark sleeping shirt hung strangely at the collar. He looked down. One silver button was missing. Ethan went completely still. A memory surfaced. Emily turning a polished silver button between her fingers. This looks expensive. His wolf remained silent. Ethan slowly closed his eyes. You stole my button. His wolf offered no apology. From somewhere deep inside his mind came one satisfied thought. Yift? Ethan stared toward the eastern wing. For the first time in years, Alpha King Ethan Blackwell realized he had absolutely no idea what his own wolf intended to do next. By the seventh morning, Ethan reached a conclusion he disliked intensely. His wolf could no longer be trusted around Emily Parker. Unfortunately, Ethan was beginning to suspect the same thing might be true of himself. He stood before the mirror in his private chamber, fastening a plain charcoal shirt instead of his usual royal coat. Pale morning light slipped between the curtains, touching the carved furniture and the silver crown resting untouched on the table. His missing button had not returned. His wolf showed no remorse. Yift. Ethan tightened his jaw. You cannot simply steal my belongings and give them to women. The wolf remained quiet. That silence felt suspiciously smug. 20 minutes later, Ethan entered the eastern kitchen through the servants' corridor. He had dismissed his guards 2 hallways away. No crown, no royal insignia, no formal coat. For once, he looked less like the ruler of 9 packs and more like a tall, broad-shouldered man who had wandered somewhere he probably did not belong. Emily was standing beside a wooden table with flour on one cheek. She looked up. Her expression became politely curious. Can I help you? For reasons Ethan could not explain, that simple question unsettled him more than facing an entire council. People usually knew who he was before he entered a room. They bowed. They watched every word. Emily simply waited. I'm inspecting palace security. She glanced around the kitchen. At 6 in the morning? Yes. Emily nodded slowly. That sounds very secure. Ethan almost frowned. Almost. He had a feeling she was making fun of him. I was told an animal has been entering this area. Her face immediately brightened. Oh, you mean Shadow. Ethan stared. Shadow? The wolf. I see. Emily returned to slicing strawberries. He's harmless. Ethan nearly laughed. Shadow had killed 3 rogue wolves during the Eastern Border Revolt. Harmless? Well, mostly. Ethan folded his arms. What does mostly mean? Emily considered. He stole bacon once. His wolf shifted proudly. Ethan ignored him. And yesterday, he growled at Ryan. Who is Ryan? The question came too quickly. Emily looked up. The milk delivery boy. Why did he growl? I have no idea. Ethan did. Ryan had stood too close. His wolf remembered perfectly. Emily smiled faintly as she arranged strawberries over a small cake. Shadow is dramatic. Ethan's eyebrows lifted. Dramatic. And spoiled. His wolf objected. Ethan almost agreed with her. He comes every morning expecting breakfast like he owns the kitchen. Ethan looked around. Technically, he did own the kitchen. Emily noticed his expression. Don't tell me you're one of those people who believes wolves should eat whatever they want. I have never given the subject much thought. That is obvious. This time, Ethan almost smiled. He had not expected her to be funny. That was dangerous. He stepped closer to the work table. The scent reached him before he could prepare himself. Strawberry, warm vanilla, and something fresh beneath it, like mint leaves after summer rain. Ethan stopped. His wolf rose instantly. Not restless, not aggressive. Certain. Mate. The word struck through him. Ethan's fingers curled against his palm. No. Matey. He had been 39 years without one. He had stopped believing fate had chosen anyone for him years ago. Kings did not wait forever. Councils certainly did not. For months, The Royal Council had pushed him toward political matches, especially Vanessa Sterling, daughter of one of the strongest Grand Alphas in the North. A sensible choice. A useful choice. This was neither. Emily glanced toward him. Are you all right? Ethan realized he had been staring. Yes. You look like the strawberries insulted you. They did not. Good. They're sensitive. A laugh nearly escaped him. He covered it with a cough. Emily studied him for another second before sliding a small plate across the table. A piece of strawberry cake sat on it. Ethan looked down. What is this? You've been staring at it for 5 minutes. I was not. You were. Ethan's wolf became unbearably pleased. Emily pushed the plate closer. Security inspection. Her mouth curved. You should test the evidence. Ethan took one bite. The cake was soft, lightly sweet, with fresh strawberry folded into the cream. It tasted exactly like the piece his wolf had eaten, but something about eating it while Emily watched him felt strangely intimate. Well? She asked. Ethan swallowed. It is good. Emily placed one hand over her heart. That may be the most emotional review I've ever received. He looked at her. She laughed. The sound was soft and warm. Something inside him shifted. Not the wolf. Him. For one quiet moment, Ethan forgot about councils, Luna candidates, borders, and crowns. Then footsteps sounded outside. A servant called Emily's name. Ethan stepped back instinctively. He did not want anyone finding him there. Not yet. Emily noticed. You're leaving? I have other inspections. Her eyes flicked toward the oven. Of course. Ethan paused at the doorway. What did you say your name was? Emily Parker. He already knew. He had learned it the night before. Still, hearing her say it felt different. Ethan, he said. She smiled. Goodbye, Ethan. No title. No bow. No fear. He walked away before he could change his mind and stay. The next morning, Emily opened the kitchen door at 5:40. Shadow waited outside, and between his paws lay a white handkerchief embroidered with 2 silver letters. A. B. Emily held the white handkerchief up to the morning light. 2 silver letters had been embroidered into one corner. A. B. She looked at Shadow. Shadow looked at the wall. Emily narrowed her eyes. That is not suspicious at all. The enormous black wolf remained perfectly still. Rain had returned before dawn, tapping softly against the kitchen windows while the old ovens filled the room with warmth. Strawberry preserves simmered in a copper pot. Fresh bread cooled beneath linen cloths, and the scent of butter and vanilla drifted through the quiet eastern wing. Emily placed the handkerchief beside the silver coin. Lavender, sprig, apple, and polished button Shadow had already brought her. She had started keeping everything in a small wooden box, mostly because she did not know what else to do with them. She folded her arms. Shadow, I think we need to discuss your career choices. One ear twitched. You may be a thief. The wolf finally looked at her. Emily pointed at the handkerchief. An organized thief. His amber eyes narrowed. Oh, don't look offended. Evidence is piling up. She opened the box dramatically. Coin, button, handkerchief, yesterday, an apple, which may not technically be theft, but considering your history, I remain cautious. Shadow lowered his head onto his paws. Emily sighed. You are very lucky you're handsome. His tail thumped once. She stared. Did you understand that? The tail stopped immediately. Emily laughed. Across the room, morning light slowly warmed the stone floor. For the next 20 minutes, she worked while Shadow remained beside the stove. That had become their routine. Emily mixed batter. Shadow watched. Emily talked. Shadow listened. It surprised her how easy it had become. People were more difficult. People interrupted. People judged. Shadow simply stayed. That morning, Emily told him about the bakery her mother had once owned in a small town south of Ravencrest. It had yellow curtains, she said, folding flour into a bowl. Ugly yellow curtains. Shadow lifted his head. They were terrible. Mother loved them. A smile softened her face. She made strawberry cake every spring, not because it sold well, because she said strawberries made people hopeful. Emily paused. The spoon slowed. When my father's debts grew, we lost the bakery. Shadow's ears lowered slightly. Emily noticed. You're making that face again. He blinked. That sad face. The wolf shifted closer. She smiled faintly. It was a long time ago. It wasn't. Not really. Some losses grew quieter, without becoming smaller. Emily scraped batter from the spoon and continued. I came here because palace work seemed safe, predictable. Shadow rested his chin on his paws. Emily looked around the old kitchen. Turns out predictable is just another word for knowing exactly which person will complain about breakfast first. The wolf made a strange sound. Emily froze. Was that a laugh? Shadow immediately looked away. Her eyes widened. Oh, you absolutely laughed at that. He stood and moved toward the window. Emily followed him with her gaze. You are becoming very rude. His tail moved once. She smiled despite herself. The warmth between them had become dangerous in a way she did not understand. Not dangerous like fear, dangerous like attachment. Emily noticed when he came late. She wondered where he went when he disappeared into the palace gardens. And yesterday, when he had not arrived until nearly 6, she had caught herself looking toward the door every few minutes. That annoyed her. You should know, she said. I am not waiting for you every morning. Shadow slowly turned his head. Emily focused intensely on the batter. I simply happen to be here. He stared. This is my workplace. Still staring. And Cake has a schedule. His tail thumped. Emily pointed the spoon at him. Don't. A soft laugh escaped her. Shadow crossed the room and stopped beside her. Up close, he was enormous. His dark fur carried the clean scent of rain, cedar, and faint smoke. Emily reached down without thinking. Her fingers brushed the silver marking beneath his throat. The moment she touched him, warmth flashed through her palm. Emily inhaled sharply. Shadow froze. The kitchen seemed to disappear. For one strange heartbeat, she felt something that did not belong to her. Loneliness. Deep and old. Then warmth. Recognition. A fierce pull that made her chest ache. Shadow's amber eyes widened. Emily pulled her hand away. What was that? The wolf took one step backward. Inside him, Ethan Blackwell's wolf surged forward with sudden certainty. Mate. This time, Ethan could not pretend he had imagined it. Emily stared at her trembling fingers. Shadow stared at her. Neither moved. Then footsteps echoed in the corridor. The spell broke. Shadow backed toward the door. Wait. He paused. Emily looked at him, confused. You felt it too, didn't you? His ears lowered. Then he disappeared into the rain. Emily remained beside the table long after he was gone. Her hand still felt warm. And inside the wooden box beside her, the handkerchief embroidered with E.B. suddenly seemed much more important than it had 10 minutes earlier. For the next 3 mornings, Emily Parker tried very hard not to think about the strange warmth that had flashed through her hand when she touched Shadow. She failed. Completely. By the 4th morning, she had burned one batch of biscuits, forgotten the cinnamon in another, and nearly poured cream into the flour bin. Margaret Collins noticed. Margaret noticed everything. You are distracted. Emily looked down at the bowl in front of her. I'm baking. You are staring at the door. Emily immediately looked away from the door. I was checking the weather. The door is closed. Emily paused. That explains why I couldn't see much. Margaret gave her a long look and walked away. Emily exhaled. At exactly 5:40, there was no shadow. Again, her chest sank before she could stop it. Ridiculous. He was a wolf, a very large, suspiciously intelligent wolf with terrible manners and a habit of stealing expensive objects, but still a wolf. She should not miss him. She cut a small piece of strawberry cake anyway, just in case. At 7:15, the service door opened. Emily looked up too quickly. It was not Shadow. It was Ethan. He wore the same plain charcoal coat as before, though today his dark hair looked slightly damp from the morning mist. Emily hated how pleased she was to see him. Another security inspection? Ethan glanced toward the oven. Yes. Emily folded her arms. You inspected that oven 3 days ago. Fire remains dangerous. Remarkable. His mouth moved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Emily noticed. That was becoming a problem too. Ethan stepped farther into the kitchen. You seem disappointed. I'm not. His amber gold eyes moved toward the untouched slice of cake. Were you expecting someone? Emily looked at the plate. No. Ethan's wolf immediately objected. Liar. Ethan ignored him. Emily wiped flour from her hands. Shadow hasn't visited for a few mornings. There was a softness in her voice that made something inside Ethan tighten. He had deliberately kept his wolf under control since the strange reaction between them. He needed distance, time, logic. His wolf hated all three. He'll return, Ethan said. Emily looked at him. You sound very confident. Ethan realized his mistake. I know wolves. Do you? Yes. Then perhaps you can explain why mine steals handkerchiefs. Ethan nearly choked. Yours? Emily's cheeks warmed slightly. I meant the wolf that visits. Ethan's wolf became unbearably pleased. Hares. Of course, Ethan said. Emily narrowed her eyes. You're smiling. I'm not. You are. I assure you, I am not. Very convincing. She turned back to the counter. At that moment, the service door opened again. Ryan Cooper entered carrying 2 milk cans. Morning, Emily. Emily smiled. Morning, Ryan. Ethan's wolf went still. Ryan placed the cans down and leaned slightly closer to Emily. My mother sent those honey biscuits you liked. Oh, that's sweet of her. Ethan's jaw tightened. Ryan looked at him. Morning. Ethan nodded once. Ryan hesitated. Something in Ethan's stare made him step half a pace backward. Emily noticed. Ethan. Yes? Stop frightening the milkman. I am standing. You're doing it aggressively. Ryan coughed into his fist, clearly trying not to laugh. Ethan's wolf growled inside him. Emily pointed a flour-covered finger. See, this is exactly what Shadow does. Ethan froze. Emily stared at him. Same expression. Same offended silence. Same amber gold eyes. Her smile slowly faded. Ethan saw the change immediately. What? Emily stepped closer. He forced himself not to move. She studied his face with unsettling concentration. Then she leaned slightly to one side. Ethan frowned. What are you doing? Looking at your eyes. His pulse changed. Emily's brow furrowed. Shadow has eyes exactly like yours. Silence. Ryan glanced between them. I should probably take these empty cans. Yes, Ethan said immediately. No, Emily said at the same time. Ryan blinked. Emily's sigh hid. Go. Ryan disappeared. Ethan and Emily remained alone. For one long moment, neither spoke. Then Emily shook her head. I'm being ridiculous. Ethan said nothing. She looked at him again. You even make the same face when I tell you not to do something. I have no idea what you mean. That face. What face? That one. Emily laughed suddenly. The tension broke. Ethan found himself smiling with her. This time, genuinely. Her laughter softened into something quieter. There, you can smile. So I've been told. You should try it more often. Ethan looked at her. For a second, the room seemed too warm. Emily became aware of how close they stood. She could smell cedar on his coat, rain, and something faintly smoky. Familiar. Very familiar. Her expression changed again. Ethan stepped back before instinct betrayed him. I should go. Emily watched him move toward the door. Ethan. He stopped. When Shadow comes back. Her voice softened. Tell him I'm not angry. Ethan's wolf surged forward. He almost turned around. Instead, he nodded once and left. The next morning at 5:40, Shadow was waiting outside the kitchen. Emily opened the door. He sat perfectly still. She folded her arms. You have some explaining to do. Shadow lowered his ears. Emily tried to stay stern. She lasted 3 seconds. Then she smiled and reached for the strawberry cake. And somewhere behind those amber gold eyes, Ethan Blackwell realized he was becoming dangerously fond of the sound of her saying his name. For 3 mornings, Shadow did not come. Emily Parker told herself this was perfectly reasonable. Wolves had lives. Probably. Forests to patrol, rabbits to judge, mysterious wolf responsibilities she knew nothing about. Still, at exactly 5:40 each morning, she found herself looking toward the service door. And every morning, she cut one small slice of strawberry cake. Just in case. By the 3rd day, even Margaret Collins noticed. You keep wasting cake. Emily looked at the untouched slice on the counter. I'm testing consistency. With one slice? It's a very focused experiment. Margaret stared at Hare. Emily smiled weakly. Margaret walked away without comment. That somehow felt worse. The truth was simple. Emily missed him. She missed the soft thump of his tail against the floor. She missed the offended way he looked at her whenever she mentioned sugar. She even missed having to guard the bacon. And, annoyingly, she also missed Ethan. The two absences felt strangely connected. That thought had bothered her ever since she noticed their eyes. Same amber gold color, same stubborn expression, same habit of looking away when caught doing something suspicious. Emily shook her head. Ridiculous. The empty kitchen offered no argument. Then, on the fourth morning, something heavy struck the service door. Emily froze. Another scrape followed. She crossed the room quickly and pulled it open. Shadow stood outside, but he looked terrible. Mud darkened his paws. His breathing came hard, and damp fur clung to his broad shoulders, as though he had traveled through half the kingdom to reach her. Emily's irritation disappeared instantly. "Oh, sweetheart." The wolf's ears lifted. She stepped outside and placed both hands against his face. "Where have you been?" Shadow leaned into her palms. Emily's heart squeezed. "You do not get to disappear for 3 days and then come back looking tragic." His eyes closed. "That is emotional manipulation." His tail moved once. She sighed. And apparently it's working. Inside the wolf, Ethan Blackwell felt his resistance crumble. He had spent 3 days forcing himself to stay away. 3 days of council meetings, border reports, and carefully controlled silence. 3 nights waking with Emily's scent still trapped in his memory. His wolf had finally stopped asking. It had simply taken control at dawn. Now, with Emily's warm hands against his face, Ethan understood why. She smelled like strawberries, vanilla, and mint after rain. Home. The word came again. Not mate. Not destiny. Home. Emily crouched and checked his paws. No cuts. Shadow watched her. No blood. She ran her fingers carefully through the fur along his shoulder. "And you're not limping." Then she looked up. "So why do you look like a widower in a thunderstorm?" Ethan almost laughed. Shadow gave a low huff. Emily smiled. "There he is." She brought him inside. The kitchen was warm, quiet, and golden with firelight. Emily placed the saved slice of strawberry cake on a plate. Shadow stared at it. Then at Hare. "Yes, I saved it." His ears lifted. "Do not make this romantic." His tail thumped. Emily groaned. "You are impossible." Shadow ate slowly. Afterward, he remained close enough that his shoulder brushed her leg. Emily pretended not to notice how comforting that felt. She began mixing dough for breakfast rolls while Shadow rested beside her. For several minutes, the only sounds were the crackle of fire and the scrape of her spoon against the bowl. Then Emily spoke softly. "I thought you weren't coming back." Shadow lifted his head. Her smile was small. "I didn't like that." Something inside Ethan tightened painfully. He moved closer. Emily looked down at him. "Don't look at me like that." He rested his head against her hip. She stopped stirring. For one quiet second, she simply stood there. Then, her fingers slipped into the fur behind his ears. "There." Her voice softened. "Better?" Shadow closed his eyes. The mate bond stirred again. Warmth moved between them, gentler this time. Emily felt it. So did Ethan. Neither pulled away. Then Shadow suddenly stood. Emily blinked. "What?" He stepped back and lowered his head. Something metallic landed on the floor. Emily frowned. A ring. Not an ordinary ring. She picked it up carefully. It was heavy black silver, polished smooth with age. At its center was a crest she recognized immediately. A black wolf beneath a silver crown. Emily stopped breathing. She had seen that symbol above every royal gate. On official decrees. On the banners behind the throne. Her face went pale. "Shadow." The wolf went very still. Emily slowly looked at him. "This is the royal signet of House Blackwell." Shadow's ears lowered. Her eyes widened. "No." He took one step backward. "No, no, no." Emily stood. "You stole from the Alpha King?" Shadow looked away. Emily pressed one hand to her forehead. "Oh, wonderful." She looked at the ring again. "This is treason." The wolf remained silent. "And now I'm holding the evidence." His tail moved once. Emily stared at him. Do not wag your tail during a criminal investigation. It stopped. She pointed toward him. Tomorrow, you and I are having a serious discussion about boundaries. Then, she looked down at the royal signet in her hand. Her stomach tightened. There was only one thing she could do. She had to return it. Personally. To Alpha King Ethan Blackwell. Emily Parker had imagined many unpleasant ways to begin a morning. Burning the bread. Dropping a tray. Being blamed for someone else's missing cream. None of them involved walking into the royal wing carrying evidence that a black wolf had apparently robbed the Alpha King. The signet ring felt impossibly heavy inside her pocket. By 8 o'clock, Ravencrest Palace had fully awakened. Servants moved briskly through marble corridors. Guards changed posts beneath silver banners, and sunlight spilled across the tall windows and pale ribbons. Emily felt very small among all of it. She stopped before two enormous black doors. A royal guard looked down at her. "State your business." Emily swallowed. "I need to return something to His Majesty." "What?" She hesitated. "That is somewhat difficult to explain." The guard's expression did not change. Emily sighed and carefully opened her hand. The black silver signet rested in her palm. Both guards went completely still. One of them looked at the ring, then at Emily, then back at the ring. "Where did you get that?" Emily considered several answers. None sounded sane. "A wolf gave it to me." Silence. The second guard blinked. Emily nodded. "Yes, I realize how that sounds." The doors opened before either man could respond. Emily was escorted into a large study lined with dark shelves and tall windows overlooking the northern gardens. She barely noticed the room, because the man standing beside the fireplace was Ethan. Her Ethan. Well, not her Ethan. The strange security inspector who had eaten cake in her kitchen and argued about ovens. He wore black now, not plain charcoal. A silver clasp rested at his throat, and the embroidered crest of House Blackwell marked his coat. Two advisors stood nearby. 3 guards waited behind him. Emily stopped walking. Something cold moved through her stomach. One of the guards lowered his head. "Your Majesty." Emily's eyes widened. She looked at Ethan, then at the guards, then back at Ethan. "No." Ethan's expression shifted. Just slightly. "Emily." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Finally, she managed, "You're the king." "Yes. You said your name was Ethan." "It is." That was technically true. His mouth almost moved. Emily pointed at him. "Do not smile." The almost smile disappeared. The advisors suddenly became fascinated by the carpet. Ethan dismissed everyone with a glance. When the doors closed behind them, the study felt much quieter. Emily slowly took the signet from her pocket. "I believe this belongs to you." Ethan looked at the ring. His wolf became very pleased. "Gift." Ethan ignored him. "Where did you find it?" Emily stared at him. "You know exactly where I found it." Ethan said nothing. Her eyes narrowed. "Shadow gave it to me." The smallest pause followed. That was all. But Emily noticed. "You know him?" "Yes." "How well?" Ethan considered the safest answer. "Very well." Emily folded her arms. "Of course." She placed the ring on his desk. "He has also brought me a silver coin, a button, a handkerchief embroidered with E.B., and a spoon that I now strongly suspect belongs somewhere expensive." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Emily noticed. "Oh, wonderful. They were yours." "Most of them." "Most?" The apple was not. Despite herself, Emily nearly laughed. She caught it just in time. "This is not funny." "No. You let me think you were inspecting my kitchen." "I was inspecting it." "You inspected an oven." "It was there." Emily stared at him. For the first time, Ethan looked almost uncomfortable. That softened something in her. Only slightly. She walked toward the window. Outside, the palace gardens glittered beneath the late morning sun. "When you came into that kitchen, you already knew who I was, didn't you?" "Yes. And I knew nothing about you." Ethan's voice lowered. "I know." Emily turned. "If I had known you were Alpha King Ethan Blackwell, do you think I would have talked to you the same way?" "No." The answer came too quickly. Emily went still. Something in his expression changed. The king disappeared for a moment. What remained was the man who had sat awkwardly at her kitchen table, eating strawberry cake. "I did not want you to stop," he said. Her anger weakened before she could protect it. Emily looked away. That doesn't make lying better. No. He did not defend himself. That mattered more than she wanted it to. A quiet moment passed between them. Then Ethan glanced at the signet. Shadow should not have brought you that. Emily immediately frowned. Don't punish him. Ethan looked at her. I didn't say I would. He probably doesn't understand property laws. Ethan's wolf gave an offended rumble inside him. Ethan almost laughed. Emily mistook the expression. I'm serious. So am I. She stepped closer. Shadow is strange, spoiled, and possibly a thief, but he has never frightened me. Ethan's gaze sharpened. He would never hurt you. The certainty in his voice made Emily pause. How can you know that? Ethan held her eyes. Because the wolf would tear apart the world before touching her. But he could not say that. Not yet. I know him. Emily studied him for a long moment. Then she picked up her empty pocket as if suddenly remembering why she had come. I should go. Ethan nodded, though every instinct told him to stop her. At the door, Emily paused. She looked over her shoulder. I was never afraid of Shadow. Ethan waited. Her expression softened, but only a little. I'm still deciding whether I should be afraid of you. Then she left. Ethan stood motionless after the door closed. His wolf stirred beneath his skin. Go after her. No. Matey. Ethan looked toward the signet ring on his desk. For the first time, the word did not feel impossible. It felt dangerous. And somewhere far below, in the eastern kitchen, Emily Parker opened her wooden box of stolen gifts and realized every single one of them had belonged to the Alpha King. By the end of that week, Emily Parker had learned something unpleasant about palaces. Nothing stayed private for long. Not missing silverware. Not strange wolves. And certainly not an Alpha King who had been seen entering the eastern kitchen more than once before breakfast. Whispers traveled faster than servants. By noon, half the lower staff believed Emily had been secretly baking for Ethan Blackwell. By evening, someone claimed the king had personally requested strawberry cake. By the next morning, the story had somehow become that Emily had enchanted him with cream. She considered this deeply unfair. The cream had been perfectly innocent. Margaret Collins did not find it amusing. You will no longer prepare desserts for the royal harvest breakfast. Emily looked up from the flour sack she was measuring. What? Margaret's expression remained controlled. The main kitchen will handle it. My cake was already submitted. It was reviewed. And, white tam. A pause. Too ordinary. Emily looked down at her hands. She had expected criticism before. She had heard worse. Still, something about those two words hurt more than they should have. Too ordinary. For the royal table. For the palace. For people born into rooms she would never enter. Emily forced a small smile. Understood. Margaret's eyes softened almost imperceptibly. But before she could say anything, the kitchen doors opened. Vanessa Sterling entered. Emily knew her immediately. Everyone did. Vanessa was 32, elegant, composed, and born into one of the strongest Grand Alpha families in the North. Her silver-blue dress fell perfectly around her, and her pale blonde hair had been pinned with small diamonds that caught the morning light. She did not need to announce herself. The room adjusted around her. Servants straightened. Margaret lowered her head politely. Emily did the same. Lady Sterling. Vanessa's gaze moved over the kitchen, then stopped on Emily. So this is the eastern kitchen. Her voice was pleasant. That somehow made Emily more nervous. Yes, my lady. Vanessa glanced at the cooling cakes. I heard His Majesty has developed an interest in this part of the palace. Emily's fingers tightened slightly around the measuring cup. I wouldn't know. Vanessa smiled faintly. Of course. There was no cruelty in the word. Only certainty. That was worse. Vanessa stepped closer to the worktable and looked at one of Emily's strawberry cakes. Pretty. Emily waited. Simple, Vanessa added. There it was again. Emily smiled politely. Strawberries rarely cooperate with politics. For one second, Vanessa looked surprised. Then, unexpectedly, amused. You're funny. I try not to be before 6. Vanessa studied her more carefully now. Not like a servant, like a problem she had not yet decided how to solve. The council has been discussing the Luna selection. Emily's chest tightened. She kept her expression neutral. Vanessa continued, His Majesty has avoided the subject for months. Emily forced herself to look at the bowl in front of her. That sounds like something His Majesty would do. Vanessa's eyes sharpened. You know him well? Too well. Not well enough. Emily thought of Ethan sitting in her kitchen, pretending ovens required inspection. She thought of Shadow resting his enormous head against her hip. She thought of the way Ethan had said, I did not want you to stop. Her heart made an inconvenient little movement. No, Emily said softly. Not really. Vanessa seemed satisfied with the answer. She left a few minutes later, but the air felt colder after she was gone. That evening, Emily heard the rest from two servants whispering near the pantry. Vanessa Sterling was the council's favored choice. Strong bloodline, political alliances, educated for court life. Exactly what a Luna should be. Emily carried a basket back to the eastern kitchen without letting them see her face. At 5:40 the next morning, Shadow appeared. Emily had already placed a small slice of strawberry cake on the table. He sat beside her chair. She did not speak for several minutes. Shadow eventually nudged her knee. Emily looked down. You are very nosy. His ears lifted. She sighed. Apparently, your owner is expected to choose a Luna. Shadow went completely still. Emily noticed. Yes, that was my reaction too. He stood. A low growl rolled through his chest. Emily blinked. Excuse me? Shadow paced once. Then again. Emily stared. You cannot growl at marriage politics. He growled again. Her mouth twitched. You really dislike Lady Sterling? His tail lashed. Despite herself, Emily laughed. Oh, this is childish. Shadow placed one paw on her shoe. Emily looked down, then at him. Her amusement softened. You know what the strange part is? He waited. She rested her hand lightly on his head. I don't even want a crown. Place? His ears lowered. I just... She stopped. What did she want? Ethan looking at her as though the room had gone quiet. Shadow waiting outside at dawn. Someone noticing when she was tired. Someone coming back. Emily swallowed. Never mind. Shadow leaned against her leg. She smiled sadly. You and your king live in a different world from me. The wolf immediately lifted his head. A warning sound rumbled from him. Emily laughed softly. Fine, you disagree. He pressed closer. Across the kitchen, Dr. Henry Sullivan had stopped in the doorway. The 67-year-old royal healer stared at the object resting beside Shadow's paw. A small silver spoon. Another gift. His face changed. Emily did not notice. Henry did. The coin, the button, the personal cloth, the royal objects, the pattern. His breath caught. He had seen it only in ancient records. A royal wolf offering pieces of its territory to one chosen person. Henry whispered the forgotten words. Hearth Choosing. And for the first time in nearly 200 years, the old ritual had begun again. Dr. Henry Sullivan had spent 43 years studying royal bloodlines, wolf instincts, and the old traditions most people in Ravencrest had forgotten. He had never expected one of those traditions to walk into the eastern kitchen carrying a silver spoon. Yet there it was. Shadow sat beside Emily Parker's chair, looking entirely too pleased with himself. Emily was cutting strawberries. The black wolf watched every movement of the knife. Henry watched the wolf, then the spoon, then Emily. His heart began beating faster. Hearth Choosing, he whispered again. Emily looked up. I'm sorry? Henry stepped into the kitchen. Shadow immediately turned toward him. The change was subtle. One moment he had been relaxed beside Emily. The next, his broad shoulders tightened. Emily noticed. Oh, stop that. Shadow looked at her. Dr. Sullivan is allowed in the kitchen. The wolf's ears shifted backward. Henry almost smiled. Even that response confirmed it. The royal wolf obeyed her. Not from training, from attachment. Henry approached slowly. Miss Parker, may I ask you something? Emily wiped her hands on her apron. That depends. Is this about the spoon? Henry glanced down. Yes. Emily sighed. I knew it. Shadow looked away. Emily pointed at him. See? Guilty. Henry's eyebrows lifted. How many things has he brought you? Emily hesitated. A few. Shadow's tail moved once. Emily corrected herself. Several. Henry waited. She began counting. A royal coin, lavender, an apple, a silver button, a handkerchief, a spoon. She paused. Then quieter. And the Alpha King's signet ring. Henry went completely still. Shadow looked pleased again. Emily frowned. That reaction is not comforting. Henry took a slow breath. Miss Parker, where are those items now? In a wooden box. Do not throw them away. I wasn't planning to. Her cheeks warmed slightly. Shadow noticed. So did Henry. Interesting. Very interesting. Before Henry could explain further, footsteps sounded beyond the corridor. A royal guard appeared. Dr. Sullivan, His Majesty requests you immediately. Henry looked at Shadow, then at Emily. He had no doubt why. Less than 20 minutes later, Alpha King Ethan Blackwell stood in his private study while Henry placed an ancient leather-bound book on the desk. Ethan looked exhausted. He had slept poorly. His wolf had spent half the night pushing images of Emily into his thoughts. Her smile, her hand in his fur, the way she had said she lived in another world from him. That last one had angered the wolf most. Henry opened the book. I saw him this morning. Ethan's gaze sharpened. Who? Henry gave him a patient look. Your wolf. Ethan said nothing. Beside Miss Parker. Still nothing. Henry turned several yellowed pages. Finally, he stopped. An old drawing showed a massive wolf placing a small object at a woman's feet. Ethan frowned. What is this? Hearth Choosing. The name meant nothing to him. Henry leaned closer. Before royal courtship became political, wolves followed something older. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. Instinct. Yes. Henry pointed to the drawing. When a royal wolf recognized someone as home, it brought pieces of its territory to that person. Ethan's expression changed. Henry continued. It began with something small. A coin, fruit, flowers. Ethan slowly looked toward the window. Henry turned the page. Then personal objects. Button. Handkerchief. Ethan's wolf stirred. Henry turned another page. Then symbols of household authority. Silver spoon. Royal signet. Ethan stopped breathing for half a second. Henry closed the book gently. Your wolf has not been stealing from you. Ethan stared at him. He has stolen several things from me. Henry's mouth twitched. He has been courting Emily Parker. Silence filled the study. Ethan looked deeply offended. His wolf was delighted. Mate. Ethan pressed 2 fingers against his temple. Henry failed to hide a smile. You find this amusing? A little. I am the king. Yes. My wolf has been robbing my bedroom. Yes. To court a kitchen omega. Henry's expression softened. No. Ethan looked at him. To court his chosen mate. That silenced him. For a long moment, the only sound was rain brushing against the windows. Ethan finally asked, what comes next? Henry hesitated. The final gift. What is it? The highest symbol of territory and protection the wolf possesses. Ethan's eyes moved toward the silver crown, resting across the room. Henry followed his gaze. Exactly. Ethan swore quietly. His wolf became almost unbearably pleased. That same afternoon, Emily received a sealed transfer notice. She read it twice. Then, a third time. After the royal harvest breakfast, she was being reassigned to Westbrook Estate, nearly 3 days from Ravencrest Palace. Emily stood alone in the pantry, holding the letter. Her first feeling was relief. That was what she told herself. No gossip, no Vanessa Sterling, no confusing king, no enormous wolf making her heart behave strangely. Then came the second feeling. Loss. She folded the letter carefully. That night, she packed 2 dresses, her mother's recipe book, and the wooden box containing Shadow's gifts. She touched the embroidered handkerchief last. A, B. Her fingers lingered over the letters. I knew you were trouble, she whispered. The next morning, Emily arrived earlier than usual. She baked one final strawberry cake. At 5:40, she placed a single slice on Shadow's usual plate. Then she left the kitchen. She could not watch him come. Shadow arrived minutes later. The room smelled exactly as it always did. Warm bread, vanilla, strawberries. But Emily's scent was faint. Too faint. The wolf moved to the table. He saw the cake. He lowered his nose toward it, then stopped. For days, Ethan had told himself the cake mattered. The routine mattered. The kitchen mattered. Now his wolf looked at the untouched slice and understood something Ethan had been too stubborn to admit. Without Emily, none of it mattered. Shadow turned away from the cake. He ran toward the door. And for the first time since he had discovered the Eastern kitchen, the strawberry cake remained completely untouched. Shadow found Emily before the palace bells finished striking 6. She was in the servants' lodging wing, kneeling beside an open travel case with 2 dresses folded inside, her mother's recipe book wrapped carefully in linen, and the small wooden box resting near her knee. The wolf stopped in the doorway. Emily looked up. For a moment, neither moved. Then she sighed. "You didn't eat the cake." Shadow's ears lowered. "I knew you wouldn't." She tried to smile. It did not quite work. Morning light slipped through the narrow window, pale and cold against the floorboards. The room smelled faintly of lavender soap, old wood, and Emily's strawberry vanilla scent. To Ethan, it smelled like leaving. Shadow crossed the room slowly. Emily watched him approach. "I'm being transferred." He stopped. Her voice softened. "Westbrook Estate." A low growl rolled from his chest. Emily pointed at him. "No." The growl deepened. "Do not growl at paperwork." He stared at hair. Despite herself, Emily almost laughed. Almost. She reached for the wooden box. "I was going to take these with me." Shadow's gaze dropped to it. Emily opened the lid. The silver coin, the button, the embroidered handkerchief, the spoon, even the little dried lavender sprig, carefully tucked between 2 folded pieces of paper. Shadow went completely still. Emily touched the handkerchief. "I know they're probably stolen." His ear twitched. "But I like them." Ethan felt something inside him break open. Not the mate bond. Something quieter. Hope. Shadow stepped closer and rested his head against her knee. Emily's fingers moved automatically into his fur. "I'm going to miss you." That was enough. Ethan could not let her leave believing half a truth. Shadow pulled away. Emily frowned. "What?" The wolf backed into the center of the room. Then the change began. Emily froze. Black fur receded. The enormous frame shifted, bones and muscle reshaping beneath a shimmer of heat. She stumbled backward. Where Shadow had stood, Ethan Blackwell rose slowly to his full height. Barefoot, dark-haired, amber-gold eyes fixed on her. The same eyes. Emily stopped breathing. For several seconds, the room was utterly silent. Then she whispered, "No." Ethan did not move. Emily looked at him, then at the doorway, then at the empty space where Shadow had been. "No." Her face turned red, very red. Ethan knew exactly which memories had reached her first. He wished, for once, that his wolf had the decency to feel embarrassed. It did not. Emily covered her face with both hands. "Oh, my God." "Emily, don't." He stopped. "You were Shadow?" "Yes." Her hands dropped. "You let me scratch behind your ears." Ethan wisely remained silent. "You stole bacon." "That was mostly the wolf." Emily stared at him. "That is the worst defense I have ever heard." A laugh almost escaped him. Her eyes widened. "Are you laughing?" "No." "You are." "I'm trying not to." "That is not helping." She turned away and paced once, then stopped. "You heard everything." Ethan's expression softened. "Yes." Emily closed her eyes. "I told you Margaret snored during inventory." "Yes." "I complained about Vanessa's perfume." "Yes." "I said one of your councilmen had the face of a man who had never washed his own cup." Ethan's mouth twitched. "That was Lord Whitmore." "I did not ask for his name." This time, Ethan laughed. A real laugh. Emily looked horrified. Then, despite herself, she laughed too. Only for a second. The hurt returned quickly. "You should have told me." Ethan's smile disappeared. "I know." She looked down at the box. "I thought Shadow was the only one around here who didn't care that I was just a kitchen omega." Ethan stepped closer. "He didn't." Emily looked up. "Neither did I." The room became quiet again. Ethan's voice lowered. "I should have told you sooner." "Why didn't you?" He could have blamed instinct. The council, the secrecy around royal wolves. Instead, he gave her the truth. "Because I was afraid." Emily blinked. The Alpha King of 9 packs saying those words sounded almost impossible. Ethan continued. "If you knew who I was, you would bow. You would measure every word. You would stop laughing when I entered the room." His gaze moved toward the box. And if you knew I was Shadow, I thought you would stop talking to me in the mornings. Emily's anger softened. He looked tired. Not kingly. Not powerful. Just tired. You liked listening to me complain? More than council meetings. That is a very low standard. It is. Her lips twitched. Ethan took another step closer. I did not come back for the cake. Emily's eyes lifted to his. My wolf knew that before I did. A warm silence settled between them. Then distant bells rang across Ravencrest. Once. Twice. The royal harvest breakfast. Emily looked toward the window. I still have to leave before noon. Ethan's expression changed immediately. No. Emily raised an eyebrow. You cannot simply say no to a transfer order. I am literally the king. She almost smiled, then shook her head. That doesn't mean you get to decide for me. Ethan stopped. The words landed. His expression softened again. You're right. Emily had not expected that. He looked at the packed case. Then let me ask instead. Her heartbeat quickened. Ask what? Ethan held her gaze. Stay until breakfast is over. Ape House. After that, if you still want to leave Ravencrest, I will not stop you. Emily searched his face. And if I stay? Something warm moved through Ethan's eyes. Then this time, I will try courting you without stealing my own silverware. Emily laughed before she could stop herself. Outside, the bells continued to ring. And, for the first time, Emily realized leaving Ravencrest might be harder than staying. By the time Emily Parker entered the Royal Harvest breakfast, she had already decided on one thing. She would not cry. Not in front of Vanessa Sterling. Not in front of the council. And certainly not in front of Ethan. The grand hall of Ravencrest Palace glowed beneath hundreds of candles. Morning sunlight poured through the high windows, turning crystal glasses and silver serving trays into flashes of white gold. The air carried the scents of roasted apples, cinnamon, fresh bread, coffee, and the faint perfume of expensive guests. Emily felt completely out of place. She wore her cleanest blue dress, simple and modest, with no jewels except a small silver pin her mother had once owned. Inside her pocket rested Ethan's royal signet. She had come to return it. Nothing more. At least that was what she kept telling herself. Across the hall, Ethan stood beside the throne in a black formal coat. He looked exactly like the man everyone expected him to be. Powerful, controlled, untouchable. Then, his eyes found Emily. Everything in his expression softened, only slightly. But she saw it. So did Vanessa. Lady Vanessa Sterling stood near the council table in pale silver silk, beautiful enough to belong in every painting Ravencrest had ever commissioned. She approached Emily calmly. Miss Parker. Emily inclined her head. Lady Sterling. Vanessa's gaze moved over her dress. You came. I was invited to stay through breakfast. By His Majesty? Emily did not answer. Vanessa smiled faintly. That explains much. Emily's stomach tightened. Around them, conversations quieted. Not completely. Just enough. Vanessa turned toward the dessert table, where elaborate pastries had been arranged beneath glass stands. Emily's strawberry cake was nowhere among them. Your cake was not selected, Vanessa said. I noticed. It was considered too simple. Emily managed a small smile. So I've been told. Vanessa studied her. This is not a bakery competition, Miss Parker. Emily's expression remained polite. I know. This kingdom needs a Luna capable of standing beside a king. There it was. Emily looked toward Ethan again. He had stopped speaking to one of the Grand Alphas. His attention had shifted. Vanessa continued. Strong alliances matter. Bloodlines matter. Education matters. Emily swallowed. She knew Vanessa was not entirely wrong. That made it hurt more. I never asked to become Luna. No. Vanessa's voice remained soft. But you allowed His Majesty's attention to create confusion. Emily looked at her. My relationship with Ethan is between Ethan and me. Several nearby nobles inhaled softly at the use of his name. Vanessa noticed. So you are familiar. Emily felt heat rise into her cheeks. Before she could answer, an older councilman stepped forward. Lord Whitmore. Emily immediately remembered, calling him the man who looked as though he had never washed his own cup. This was unfortunate timing. Your Majesty, Whitmore called. Ethan's eyes hardened. What is it? Whitmore gestured toward Emily. There are concerns. Emily's spine straightened. Ethan descended one step from the dais. About? The influence surrounding Miss Parker. Silence spread through the hall. Whitmore continued carefully. Your wolf has behaved unusually since encountering her. Emily's heart dropped. Vanessa said nothing. Another councilman spoke. Her scent may have affected royal judgment. Ethan became very still. Emily felt humiliation burn through her. I did not use my scent on anyone. Whitmore raised one hand. No accusation has been made. That sounded remarkably like one. A few servants hid smiles. Even now, Emily could not stop herself. Ethan almost did too. Then Vanessa spoke. No one is questioning Miss Parker's kindness. Her gaze settled on Emily. But kindness and suitability are different things. She looked toward the untouched space on the royal dessert table. A kitchen omega who feeds scraps to a beast should not be mistaken for a future queen. The room changed. Emily felt it before she understood why. Ethan's scent sharpened. Cedar. Smoke. Winter air. His eyes flashed gold. Vanessa. The warning in his voice silenced the room. But something deeper had already awakened. Emily saw Ethan's hands curl. Then, the transformation began. Gasps swept through the hall. Black fur replaced skin. His body expanded, powerful and massive. Within seconds, Shadow stood where the Alpha King had been. The fierce black wolf lifted his head. Several nobles stepped backward. Emily did not. Shadow, she whispered. His amber gold eyes found her immediately. Then, instead of approaching, he turned. He walked past Vanessa, past Whitmore, past every noble family watching in silence. He climbed the steps to the throne. Emily's breath caught. Shadow reached the royal chair, then lowered his head. His teeth closed gently around the silver-black crown of Ravencrest. The entire hall froze. Dr. Henry Sullivan stood abruptly. No, he whispered. Shadow turned. He carried the crown down the steps, straight toward Emily. Each paw struck the marble with quiet certainty. Emily's heartbeat became painfully loud. He stopped before her, then lowered his head. The crown touched the floor at Emily Parker's feet. Henry's face went pale. Slowly, the old royal healer dropped to one knee. Hearth Choosing. Whispers exploded across the room. Emily stared at the crown, then at Shadow. She finally understood. The coin, the button, the handkerchief, the spoon, the signet, they had never been random gifts. Shadow had been offering her pieces of his world, and now he had brought the final one. The kingdom itself. The wolf shifted again. Ethan rose before her in human form. No one spoke. He looked at Emily first. Not the council. Not Vanessa. Yeah. Then, he turned toward the room. Emily Parker is not something for this council to approve or reject. His voice carried through the hall. She is not a political arrangement. Whitmore lowered his eyes. Ethan continued. And she will not be transferred, dismissed, or sent anywhere without her consent. Emily looked at him. His gaze returned to hers. Not even by me. Something inside her chest broke open. Not because he had defended her, because he had listened. Ethan glanced down at the crown between them. He did not pick it up. He did not place it on her head. He simply stepped back, leaving the choice where it belonged. With her, Emily looked at Shadow's crown, then at Ethan, and for the first time that morning, she forgot she had promised herself not to cry. Emily Parker did not become Luna the next morning. To the disappointment of half the palace, she did not become Luna the next week either. Ethan Blackwell had expected the council to protest. They did. Loudly. Emily had expected Ethan to ignore them. He did. But he did not pressure her. That surprised her more. After the royal harvest breakfast, he simply returned the crown to its place, walked Emily back to the eastern kitchen, and asked one question. What do you want? No one had asked her that in years, so Emily told him. Time. Ethan nodded. You have it, and he kept his word. He did not summon her to royal dinners. He did not announce a mating ceremony. He did not send jewelers to measure her for anything terrifying. Instead, he began courting her like a man. A very powerful man. A slightly hopeless man. And, as Emily quickly discovered, a man who had absolutely no business being near eggs. The first time Ethan tried helping in the kitchen, he broke 3. Emily stared at the bowl. Then at him. You command 9 packs. Yes. You have survived wars. Yes. And this defeated you? Ethan looked at the broken shell in his hand. It was unexpectedly fragile. Emily laughed so hard she had to sit down. That became one of his favorite sounds. Over the following weeks, something gentle grew between them. Not quickly, not perfectly, but naturally. Ethan still attended councils. Emily still woke before sunrise. He still carried the weight of Ravencrest on his shoulders. But now, some evenings, he found a small wrapped pastry waiting in his study. No note. He always knew who had sent it. And some mornings, Emily arrived at the kitchen to discover the broken window latch had been repaired, or a heavier coat had appeared on the chair after Ethan noticed her shivering. Neither mentioned these things. They simply noticed. Ryan Cooper still delivered milk. Ethan still disliked how easily Ryan made Emily laugh. He tried to hide it. He failed. One morning Ryan leaned over the counter to tell Emily a story. Ethan, in human form, quietly moved the milk can between them. Emily looked at it, then at him. Did you just use dairy as a territorial boundary? No. Ryan coughed to hide a laugh. Emily smiled sweetly. Of course not. Ethan's wolf growled inside him. Emily heard the faint sound in his chest. Shadow agrees with me. That is unfortunate. Her smile softened. She liked this version of him. The king who could be jealous without being cruel. The wolf who wanted her close. The man who had learned that caring for someone did not mean owning their choices. Months passed. Emily did not accept a crown. She accepted something better first. Trust. When she finally allowed the mate bond to deepen, it happened quietly. No council. No audience. No ceremony. Just Ethan standing beside her beneath the old apple trees after rain, his hand wrapped gently around hers. Their scents mingled. Strawberry and vanilla. Cedar and smoke. Mint after rain. Home. Later, Emily was given responsibility for a new project she had proposed herself. The Ravencrest Community Kitchen. Unused food from royal banquets would no longer be thrown away. Widows, elderly servants, wounded guards, and struggling families from the lower district would receive warm meals instead. Margaret Collins pretended not to be proud. She failed at that too. The woman whose cake had once been called too ordinary for the royal table now decided how the royal table could serve people beyond it. Emily liked that far more than jewels. Then came one quiet morning several months later. Me for a 40 a.m. The eastern kitchen glowed beneath soft golden lamps. Rain whispered against the windows. Strawberries simmered slowly with sugar, filling the room with a bright, familiar sweetness. Emily placed a fresh strawberry cake on the table. The service door opened. Ethan stepped inside, in human form. His dark hair was slightly messy, his shirt collar unfinished, and he looked suspiciously like a king who had escaped before anyone could dress him properly. Emily glanced behind him. Where's Shadow? Ethan pulled out the chair beside the oven. Hungry. She folded her arms. Then he can ask properly. Ethan looked at the cake. Then at hair. May I have some cake? Emily considered. Then cut a very small slice. Ethan stared at it. That's all? Royal wolves shouldn't eat too much sugar. His eyes narrowed. Inside him, Shadow objected immediately. Emily heard the low rumble. Her mouth twitched. Complaining will not help. The growl became louder. Emily laughed and cut another slice. Ethan relaxed. Manipulative. You trained me. He smiled. A real smile. The kind no portrait artist had ever captured. Emily sat across from him. For a while, neither spoke. They did not need to. The kitchen smelled like strawberries, warm bread, rain, and cedar. Outside, Ravencrest slowly awakened. Inside, the Alpha King sat with strawberry cream on his fork and peace in his eyes. Long ago, he had returned every morning because his wolf could not stay away from Emily. Later, Ethan had convinced himself it was the cake. Then the mate bond. Then instinct. But sitting there at 5:40 in the morning, watching Emily hide a smile behind her coffee cup, he finally understood. He came back because this was the one place where nobody needed the Alpha King. Only Ethan. And Emily had loved him long before she ever wanted his crown. That was why he kept returning. Every morning. Home. So, this is where Emily and Ethan's story gently closes. If you're still here with me after all of this, Thank you. Truly, what stayed with me most was not the crown, the mate bond, or even that stubborn wolf stealing half the palace one gift at a time. It was the way Emily handled pain. She felt betrayed when the truth was hidden from her. She was misunderstood by people who judged her place before they understood her heart. She was hurt, but she did not beg to be chosen. And when staying began to cost her dignity, she was willing to leave. That matters. We cannot control who misunderstands us, who hides things from us, or who decides we are not enough. But we can control whether we abandon ourselves trying to prove them wrong. Emily chose her dignity before she chose love. And maybe that is why love finally became something safe enough to choose. If you're still with Wolf's Secret, leave the word DIGNITY in the comments. And if this story gave you a smile, a little comfort, or something worth remembering, you're always welcome to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for staying with us.